Never buy a tiny house. At least don't do it until you've considered all the major drawbacks. What are those? That's what I'm going to tell you right now. Welcome to Tiny House Mafia channel. First of all, it's tiny, it's the name. 300 feet of living space sounds like a not so funny of a joke to most people. If you own a piece of land, why would you build a shed to live in? Should you even think of a tiny house if you don't have any land? All that is pretty confusing. Nevertheless, in the end of this video I will also share some solutions for most problems I will mention here regarding living in tiny houses. So, what are those? Okay, let me play the devil's advocate and try to look past the stereotypes. Let's make a case for tiny houses. Is there any serious reason to buy one? What are the advantages and what's the selling point? Actually, it's the price. And I do admit that building a tiny house is much cheaper. It requires at least one less digit to write the price down, even if you are comparing it to the simplest and modestest apartment. And simple is a word. Smaller size means less materials, therefore it's cheaper, sounds legit. Owning a house, even a itsy-bitsy cute little house, is several times more preferable than living in a basic cramped studio apartment. But there is a pitfall that could really mess up with the financial benefit of tiny house. Any apartment, even a small studio, comes with a set of utilities. As for tiny house, you've guessed it, there are none. It requires a huge effort on your part to achieve somewhat of an autonomy. You definitely will need some water tanks, solar panels, maybe dry closet. All are mandatory, and that's only the tip of an iceberg. With a house like that, you can forget about simply buying furniture from a nearby store. Your unusual requirements are pretty hard to meet. Nothing fits. As for specialized size-appropriate furniture, it is the most made for yachts and campers, so it has that yacht camper price tag. Total cost could easily match the house price itself. And don't forget about renting space unless you're intended to stay on your own land. Solar panels can't fully cover your energy needs, so you'd have to pay to use someone's generator or buy fuel for your own. It adds to the pile of expenses. Therefore, a decision has to be made. It's either convenient or affordable. Please pick one. Second biggest advantage of a tiny houses is construction speed. Yeah, it's fast. Usually it takes about 2 weeks to set up a prefab house on your land. And there is it, your own tiny house right where you want it, looking all nice. And I'm not talking about a box with a door, no. It's fully built, fully functional and comfortable house ready for living. And you can even build it yourself. It does require some construction ability, but not a huge amount. And actually it doesn't take much for a dream house. An old trailer or a big cargo container, both are more than suitable. Minimalism dictates, the less the better. That principle is what guides every decision when you are considering tiny houses. And usually, tiny houses are pretty well insulated. Well, it means warmer winters and easier conditioning in the summer, and since they are pretty light for a house, I've heard people argue that those houses get blown away by the weakest of the breezes. But it's not true, it's still a sturdy house and it weighs accordingly. In addition, those houses don't depend on having a foundation, they could be installed on any flat surface. You can even use something as simple as tile as a base. On one hand, it's a huge asset since you don't have to spend pretty penny on a project as big as foundation. It's not only money we're talking about, it's also time. It takes out a year for a foundation to settle. On the other hand, it's not guaranteed that house itself would last as long as a classic brick building. Mobility is another reason, admittedly an unusual one to choose a tiny house as a place of permanent residence. Obviously, it's not a camper and you can't really travel in it. But what you can do is move it from place to place with ease and at low cost. Usually just a small truck and a crane will do the trick. So it gives you an ability to change the scenery at will, quickly and smoothly. Now you don't have to spend money and time building a new house. Is it a big advantage or simply a feature of a tiny house? is for you to decide. But what if someone does a grand theft tiny house on me while I'm away? Don't worry, it doesn't work that way. The size question is also on the table. Opinions are divided, some people consider smaller size as an advantage, others don't. Somehow, the common consent is that tiny houses aren't suitable for a big family to live in, but it would probably work as a guest or country house. Actually, why not? Affordable, comfortable and ready-to-use country house that takes almost no space on your grounds sounds pretty neat. I would go as far as to claim that living in a tiny house as a family is also possible. 300 square feet is enough if used properly. In reality, those 300 square feet of your own house with a piece of land and ability to be closer to nature are more useful and valuable than the similar size apartment somewhere in a concrete box swarming with people. At very least, it provides children with a place to play and gives their parents some actual privacy. Of course, you will be bumping into each other now and then, and there is no way you can throw a big party at this tiny house. There are two ways to approach the problem of not being able to fit all the things inside a tiny house. To be fair, this issue comes up with any type of not-so-spacious residence. Firstly, you can accommodate several extra structures on your land – a shed, a garage, even another small guest house, as long as you have enough space. Secondly, tiny house goes hand in hand with minimalistic lifestyle. Applying it means getting rid of every redundant thing or not buying it in the first place. Should you buy a tiny house or keep saving money for a personal stone palace? People have been arguing that for several years now, and I'm sure that this argument not ending in the nearest future. The solution is so basic it hurts. It depends on what your definition of comfort is. You do you. If your intention is to live in harmony with nature, if minimalistic lifestyle doesn't bother you, tiny houses are a good choice. After all, tiny houses are like love. You either feel it or you don't. Any arguments falls at its feet. All problems become manageable if you dare to dream of a freedom and living without made-up restrictions. Wishing you luck and harmony. See you soon.